The first time I realized my sister's ex-boyfriend might be in love with me, I laughed so hard I nearly tore the letter in half. Who the hell writes love letters in 2025? Anyway, but there it was, me name written in bold ink across the envelope, the handwriting unmistakably his. And when I opened it, when I read the words that sounded nothing like the smooth, smug version of him I had always known, my chest clenched in ways I couldn't explain. I should have thrown it away. I should have walked straight to my sister's room, tossed the paper on her bed, and said, "Look, your idiot ex still doesn't know how to let go." But I didn't, because part of me couldn't stop reading. The letter wasn't a confession, not in the way you'd expect. It was searching, a story half told, a longing hidden between metaphors. He wrote about silence, about the way a shadow falls across the street when the sun dips, about how sometimes he thinks of someone he can't name. And when he mentioned the you he couldn't forget, every line bent toward me. I remember clutching that paper until my hands sweated. My sister, Caroline, had broken up with him 2 years ago. His name was Aiden Pierces, the Aiden Pierce everyone in town either adored or hated. He had that all-American look, with his lean build, tousled dark hair, and those ridiculous gray eyes that never seemed to blink when he stared at you. To me, he was nothing more than my sister's mistake. And now, he was writing love letters to me. I was 20, living in a sleepy college town in upstate New York, where gossip traveled faster than the mail. One wrong step, one rumor, and it could spread like wildfire. And this was gasoline waiting for a spark. I told myself to ignore him, pretend it never happened. But then another letter came, and another, always slipped into the old mailbox outside our porch, always written in that same haunted, almost desperate voice. And against my better judgment, I kept them. The 5th letter broke me. It said, "I shouldn't want this. I shouldn't even think of you. But you're the only person who makes me believe I'm not broken beyond repair. Tell me to stop and I will. Say nothing, and I'll take it as permission to keep loving you in secret." I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the folded paper, my pulse racing, because what terrified me most wasn't the fact that he was in love with me. It was that, somewhere deep down, I didn't hate it. The first time I saw him again after the letters, it was outside the coffee shop on Main Street. I was leaving with a cup of bitter black coffee when he appeared from nowhere, leaning casually against the brick wall like some kind of movie cliché. "Lucas," he said. My name sounded too soft in his mouth. I froze. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting," he replied. "For you." He had no right to look at me like that, like I was the answer to every unspoken question in his head. And yet, the way his eyes lingered, the way his lips curved into something between guilt and hope, it made my chest ache. "I got your letters," I blurted. Something flickered across his face, fear, then relief. And you're insane," I snapped. "You dated my sister. You can't just—" "I know." He cut in, his voice suddenly sharp. Then it softened. "I know, Lucas, but I can't stop what I feel." The silence between us was suffocating. Cars passed by, people laughed inside the cafe, but it was like the whole world had narrowed to the two of us. "You're playing a dangerous game," I muttered. "Maybe," he admitted, stepping closer, his presence overwhelming. "But tell me this. If you really hated me, why are you still standing here?" I didn't have an answer. My hands tightened around the coffee cup until it burned. That night I dreamt of him, not in a romantic fairy tale way. It was raw, tangled, full of half-formed words and touches that left me gasping awake. I hated myself for it. I hated him more. And yet, when the next letter came, I hid it under my pillow. Every page was a temptation. Every word he wrote peeled away the distance I had tried to keep. And slowly, dangerously, I found myself writing back. I didn't sign my name. I didn't admit anything. Just fragments, questions, things I could never say out loud. "Why me?" I scribbled once. His reply came a day later. "Because when I look at you, I see the part of myself I thought I lost forever. It wasn't fair. He wasn't fair." And still I kept answering. Things came crashing down on a rainy Friday. Caroline, my sister, found one of the letters I had carelessly left on my desk. I walked into my room to see her standing there, holding it like a smoking gun. "Lucas," she said, her voice sharp, trembling with disbelief. "What the hell is this?" My heart dropped into my stomach. I opened my mouth, but no words came. She shook the paper. "This is from Aiden. Aiden, Lucas. Do you even understand what you're doing?" My throat felt raw. "I didn't ask for this. But you didn't stop it either," she spat, tears welling in her eyes. "He broke me, Lucas. He broke me, and now he's what? Trying to take you too." Her words cut deeper than she knew, because part of me feared she was right. That night I left the house. I couldn't face her, couldn't face myself. I walked aimlessly through the rain until I found myself standing in front of his apartment building, soaked to the bone. When he opened the door, his expression turned from shock to something I couldn't name. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "Then why do I want to be?" I shot back, my voice breaking. For a long time, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, he reached out, his fingers brushing mine. And in that moment, the world tilted off its axis. The days that followed blurred into a storm of guilt, longing, and stolen moments. We were careful, too careful. No one could know. Not Caroline, not our friends, not the town that thrived on gossip like blood. But secrecy has its price. Every glance became a risk, every letter a weapon waiting to be discovered. And the deeper I fell, the harder it became to breathe without him. One evening, as we sat in his dimly lit apartment, he said something that cracked me open. "If this destroys us," he murmured, "at least I'll know I loved you without regret." And God help me, I believed him. That was only the beginning. Because love, I was starting to learn, is never simple. It's a battlefield dressed as poetry, a secret disguised as salvation. And in Aiden's arms, I was already losing the war I swore I'd never fight. If guilt had a sound, it was the silence that followed me home after leaving Aiden's apartment that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every shift of the air inside the house seemed to accuse me of something I wasn't ready to admit. Caroline barely spoke to me the next morning. She moved around the kitchen like a ghost, her face pale, her eyes darting anywhere but mine. She knew, maybe not the whole truth, but enough. And I couldn't blame her. I had betrayed her in a way. But even as I sat at the breakfast table, pushing eggs around my plate without tasting them, all I could think about was Aiden's hand brushing mine, his voice whispering like a prayer in the darkness. "At least I'll know I loved you without regret." And God, I was already addicted to the way he made me feel. The next letter didn't come in the mailbox. It came slipped under my car's windshield wiper, hidden beneath the drizzle of an early October rain. My heart pounded as I opened it in the driver's seat. "Lucas," it began, his handwriting darker this time, sharper, like his emotions had carved themselves into the paper. "I don't know how much longer we can hide. The weight of this secret is eating me alive. But if you're afraid, I'll carry the blame alone. Just don't let go of me. Not yet." I folded it carefully, tucking it into the glove compartment. It should have felt suffocating, dangerous. Instead, it felt like oxygen. That night, I wrote him back. My hands shook as I scrawled the words, but I didn't stop until the page was filled. "You make it sound like I have a choice, but I don't, because every time I think of walking away, I can't breathe. I hate you for that, and I hate myself more." I slipped it into his mailbox past midnight, the streets empty except for my pounding heart. Days blurred. Nights became sharper, hungrier. Every secret meeting with him was a gamble. Every glance stolen across crowded streets a dare. And with each letter, each whispered confession, the walls around me cracked. One evening, Aiden drove us out of town, down winding roads until the city lights disappeared. We stopped by the lake, its surface smooth and endless beneath the stars. He killed the engine and sat there in silence, staring at the water. "I used to come here with your sister," he said finally. His voice was low, almost broken. "Back when I thought I could love her the way she deserved." My chest tightened. "You don't have to tell me this." "Yes, I do," he insisted, turning toward me. His eyes were raw, stripped of all the arrogance I'd once hated. Because it wasn't real with her. I tried, Lucas. God, I tried. But I was lying to both of us. The truth is, the first time I noticed you really noticed you, it terrified me. You were off limits. You were forbidden. So I ran into her arms, thinking it would kill whatever I felt for you. Couldn't breathe. The night pressed against us like a confession neither of us could escape. And did it work? I whispered. His hand found mine in the dark. No. Not even close. When he kissed me, it was nothing like I imagined. It wasn't fireworks or music, it was raw, desperate. A clash of fear and longing. And when I kissed him back, every part of me knew I was crossing a line I could never uncross. The weeks that followed felt like living two lives. At home, I pretended to be the same Lucas, quiet, reserved, the younger brother who didn't cause trouble. But with Aiden, I was something else entirely. I was reckless, hungry, alive. We carved out stolen moments in hidden places, the back booth of an empty diner, the bleachers at the high school football field long after everyone had gone home, the dim corners of his apartment where the world couldn't see us. Every touch, every breath, was a rebellion against the rules we'd been given. But secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, have a way of bleeding into the open. It happened at a Halloween party. The house was packed, music thumping, the air thick with beer and smoke. Caroline had dragged me there, insisting I needed to live a little. I agreed, mostly to keep her from suspecting what I was really doing with my nights. And then he walked in. Aiden, dressed in a simple black jacket, his mask hanging loosely in his hand. His eyes immediately found mine across the room. My stomach dropped. I tried to look away, but it was useless. His presence was a magnet pulling me in. He shouldn't have been there. He knew Caroline would be. He knew I would be. But maybe that was the point. As the night wore on, I found myself slipping outside for air. The noise too much, the lies too heavy. That's when he followed me. You shouldn't have come, I hissed when he stepped onto the porch. Maybe, he said, his breath misting in the cold air. But you don't look like you want me to leave. I hated how right he was. The porch was dark, the laughter from inside muffled by closed doors. And before I could stop myself, I leaned into him. Our lips met, hungry, frantic, as if the risk itself made it sweeter. But then the door creaked open. Lucas, Caroline's voice. We broke apart like lightning had struck between us. My sister stood there, frozen, her face pale as she took in the scene. No, she whispered, shaking her head. Tell me I didn't just see that. My heart crashed against my ribs. Aiden stepped forward, his voice steady. Caroline, I don't. Her voice cracked, tears brimming in her eyes. Not you, and not him. Anyone but him. She turned and fled inside, the sound of the door slamming echoing like a gunshot. I stood there, shaking, staring at Aiden with a mixture of fear and fury. This is your fault, I spat. You brought this here. You ruined everything. He looked at me, pain etched across his face. No, Lucas, this isn't just me. You chose this too. The words cut because they were true. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt heavy with silence. My sister's pain a shadow pressing through the walls. I wanted to hate him, to hate myself. But underneath it all, the truth clawed its way free. I didn't regret loving him. And that terrified me more than anything else. The fallout was brutal. Caroline stopped speaking to me. She avoided me at meals, slammed her bedroom door when I walked by, left the house before I could apologize. I tried to explain, to tell her it wasn't what she thought, but the words crumbled on my tongue. Because it was exactly what she thought. Meanwhile, Aiden became a ghost. No letters, no late-night calls, no stolen meetings. It was as if he had vanished, leaving me to drown in the wreckage of what we'd started. And maybe that's what hurt most, the absence of him. Because even in my shame, even in the wreckage, I wanted him back. It was nearly 2 weeks later when he appeared again. I was walking home from class, the November wind biting at my skin, when a car pulled up beside me. His car. Get in, he said, his voice low, urgent. I hesitated. Then I opened the door. The drive was silent, tense, until he pulled into that same lakeside spot where he'd first kissed me. He shut off the engine, staring straight ahead. I'm sorry, he said finally, for hurting her, for hurting you, for all of it. I swallowed hard. Then why keep going? He turned to me, his eyes fierce, desperate. Because I love you, Lucas, and I can't pretend I don't. Not anymore. The words hung between us, heavy and irrevocable. And for the first time, I let myself say it back. I love you too. The night swallowed our voices, the lake reflecting the stars above. And though the world outside would never understand, in that moment it didn't matter. Because love, as I was learning, was never about permission. It was about survival. And I had chosen him. Love is easy when it's hidden. It's brutal when the world finds out. The night I told Aiden I loved him, I thought we had turned a corner. That maybe, somehow, the storm would ease just because we finally spoke the words we had both been choking on. But if anything, the storm only grew louder. Caroline stopped coming home. I'd find traces of her perfume still clinging to the hallway. Her half-empty mug on the counter, but her presence was gone. Mom kept asking me if I had fought with her, and I lied through my teeth, saying it was just sibling stuff. But her silence wasn't the kind you fix with apologies. It was the kind that cracks houses apart. And people were starting to whisper. It began at the college library. I was shelving books when I overheard two classmates talking at one of the tables. They say Aiden Pierce broke up with Caroline because of her brother, one of them said. The other laughed. You mean Lucas? Please. No way. Why not? Think about it, Caroline hasn't been seen with him in weeks, and Aiden keeps disappearing. My cousin swears he saw them at the lake last weekend. My blood turned to ice. I wanted to walk away, to pretend I didn't care. But the words stuck in my head like burrs, clinging no matter how hard I tried to shake them off. By the time I got home that night, there was already a message waiting for me, slipped under my door. His handwriting. Meet me at the diner. Midnight. The diner was empty, just the faint hum of the jukebox in the corner. Aiden was in the booth farthest back, his hands clasped tightly, knuckles pale. People are talking, he said the moment I sat down. I know, I whispered. He exhaled hard, running a hand through his hair. Caroline hasn't returned my calls. I think she told someone. The thought made my stomach twist. Do you regret it? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. His eyes snapped to mine. Loving you? Never. But I regret hurting her. I regret making you carry this weight. The waitress came by, and we ordered nothing. She gave us a strange look but didn't press. When she left, Aiden leaned across the table, his voice barely audible. We can't keep pretending this won't explode. Sooner or later, everyone will know. And when they do, they'll come for us. For me. For you. I swallowed. Then let them. His lips parted, his eyes searching mine, as if trying to decide whether I meant it. And I did. God help me, I did. The explosion came sooner than I expected. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of cold autumn day when the church bells in town carried too far. Mom was in the kitchen, making pancakes, when Caroline finally came home. She didn't look at me. She didn't even look at Mom. She walked straight to her room, slammed the door, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe that was all. But minutes later, Mom called me into the living room. Lucas, she said slowly, her face pale. Caroline told me something I need you to confirm. My chest tightened. What did she say? Mom hesitated, then, that you've been seeing Aiden, that he's been writing to you, that she faltered, eyes wet, that you're in love with him. The world stopped. My throat closed. My palms sweated. There was no easy lie to escape this time. Yes, I whispered, the word barely leaving my lips. Her hand flew to her mouth, like she was holding back a cry. Oh my God! I wanted to defend myself, to say it wasn't what she thought. But that would have been another lie. It was exactly what she thought. The silence stretched until it was unbearable. Lucas, she said finally, her voice trembling. He's your sister's ex. Do you have any idea how wrong this is? How much this hurts her? I know, I croaked. I know it's wrong, but I can't help what I feel. And neither can he. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You're going to destroy this family. I left before I broke apart in front of her. By Monday, the whole town knew. I don't know who Caroline told, or who whispered it first, but by the time I stepped onto campus, the stairs burned. Conversations hushed when I passed. Some laughed under their breath, others shook their heads with disgust. Is it true? Someone called after me in the hallway. You and Aiden? I kept walking, but my legs felt like lead. Later that day, I found Aiden waiting by my car. He looked furious. They're coming after me at work, he said. My boss asked if I was fooling around with kids. They're treating me like a criminal. You're not, I said firmly. You're not. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip almost desperate. We can't stay here, Lucas. This town will eat us alive. We have to get out. I stared at him, heart racing. Run away. Yes. His eyes blazed. I don't care where. Anywhere but here. We can start over. Just us. It sounded insane. Reckless. Impossible. But part of me wanted it more than air. That night I couldn't sleep. I packed a bag, then unpacked it. Over and over. My mind raced with Caroline's tears, with Mom's broken expression, with the whispers of everyone in town. But through it all, one thought remained: Aiden's hand on mine, steady and certain, telling me we could survive this if we were together. At 3 a.m, my phone buzzed. A message from him. I'm outside. I crept to the window. His car was parked down the street, headlights off, waiting. For a long time, I stood there, staring at the shadow of him behind the wheel. My whole life was on the other side of that glass family. Friends, the version of me that had always done what was expected. And outside, waiting in the dark, was love. Messy, forbidden, terrifying love. I grabbed my bag. The road stretched endless before us as we drove, the world behind us fading into nothing but memory. Aiden's hand brushed mine on the center console, tentative at first, then firm. Are you sure? He asked softly. I turned to him, my chest tightening with something too big to name. I've never been more sure of anything. For the first time in weeks, his smile wasn't weighed down by guilt or fear. It was real, bright, and in that moment, I realized something. We weren't running away. We were running toward something. But even freedom has a price. We found a small apartment in a city miles away, anonymous and quiet. For the first time, we could wake up tangled in each other's arms without fear of being caught. We could walk through streets where no one knew our names. No one cared who we were. Yet at night, when the city lights dimmed, guilt gnawed at me. I missed Caroline. I missed Mom. I missed the life I'd abandoned, even if it had abandoned me first. Aiden saw it too. One night, he cupped my face and whispered, "We'll go back. Someday. When it's safe. When they're ready to understand. But until then, let's just be us." And so we were. The letters never stopped. Only now he left them on the kitchen counter, or slipped them under my pillow, or taped them to the bathroom mirror. They weren't desperate anymore. They were filled with small joys, secret promises, ordinary magic. Today I watched you laugh at a stupid commercial, and it felt like the whole world was finally right. I used to think love was fire. Now I know it's also the quiet that keeps you warm when the world is cold. Even if we burn, Lucas, I'll burn gladly. Because I'll burn with you. And every time I read them, I knew this was worth every scar. The last weeks of the semester carried an electric weight I had never known before. Everywhere I turned, Professor Hale seemed to linger, his presence a storm and sanctuary all at once. I could no longer look at him without remembering the night I broke down in his office, the warmth of his arms holding me steady while I poured out years of silence and loneliness. But something inside me shifted after that night. It wasn't only admiration anymore, or even just desire. It was a quiet, pulsing truth: I loved him. And that terrified me, because what if I had misread him? What if the softness I thought I saw was only pity? What if I was just another student he would forget when the semester ended? Every class became unbearable and intoxicating. When he called my name during attendance, his voice carved into me like scripture. When his eyes swept across the room, even if they only brushed mine for a second, it felt like standing too close to the edge of a cliff. One afternoon, while I was gathering my notes, I heard his voice behind me. "Stay for a moment." The room emptied, leaving only the two of us. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock, the faint rustle of papers in his hands. "You've been quiet lately," he said, closing his folder. "Is something wrong?" My throat closed up. How could I tell him that the only thing wrong was the ache of wanting him so badly I couldn't breathe? "I'm fine," I whispered, staring at the floor. He stepped closer. "Evan." My name sounded different when he spoke it like he was touching it carefully. "You don't have to lie to me." I lifted my head, and suddenly the words broke free before I could cage them. "I can't stop thinking about you." The silence that followed was violent. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it might kill me. "I know it's wrong," I rushed on. "I know I'm just a student in your—" But before I could finish, he reached forward and brushed his hand across my cheek. It was so light it could have been a mistake. But then his thumb lingered, tracing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "You think I haven't been fighting the same thoughts?" His voice was low, almost broken. "Every time you walk into my classroom, I remind myself of every reason I can't, shouldn't." His breath caught, and I saw something raw in his eyes that no lecture hall had ever revealed. "But when you cried in my arms that night," he continued, voice unsteady, "I realized I couldn't keep pretending." My chest cracked open with something too big for words. "So what does this mean?" I asked, barely breathing. He closed his eyes, like the weight of his answer might undo him. "It means I'm human, and I've fallen for someone I was never supposed to." The distance between us dissolved. His lips met mine, hesitant at first, as though he feared I would vanish if he pushed too hard. But I didn't vanish, I burned. The kiss was everything I had dreamed of. Restrained yet desperate, trembling with the knowledge of how forbidden it was, yet bursting with the relief of no longer hiding. When we finally pulled apart, I was shaking. "What do we do now?" He exhaled shakily. "We wait. We finish the semester. And then, when there's nothing left to bind us to these roles, we'll see what we can be without fear." The weeks that followed were agony and ecstasy. In class, he was once again the cold professor, his expression unreadable, his words sharp and distant. But when our eyes met, I saw the truth. The same fire that consumed me was consuming him too. I counted down the days until the semester's end like they were years. And then, finally, the last paper was submitted, the last lecture given, the last exam graded. On the evening grades were released, I received a message from him. "Meet me in my office." One last time. I went, heart hammering like a drum. When I entered, he wasn't behind his desk. He was standing by the window, looking out at the fading sunset. "It's over," he said softly, turning to me. "No more professor. No more student. Just us," I whispered. For the first time, his smile was unguarded, small, but real. He reached for me, and this time there was no hesitation. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me in, and his lips claimed mine with the kind of hunger that came from years of silence finally breaking. We didn't speak of rules or consequences anymore. We only spoke with touch, with breath, with the trembling confessions of hands that had waited too long. And when he whispered against my mouth, "I love you, Evan," I knew I had found a place I never thought I would, a place where I was seen, wanted, and cherished. Not as just another student, but as the person who had broken through the walls of a cold professor's heart. And in his arms, I finally stopped being afraid. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.